Jimmy Carter, 39, President of the United States, a peanut farmer turned politician. Sounds like the start of a folksy joke, doesn't it? But Carter's presidency, spanning from 1977 to 1981, was anything but a laughing matter. He inherited a nation still reeling from the Watergate scandal, its trust in the government shattered. His promise? To restore that trust, to bring honesty and integrity back to the White House. Noble goals to be sure, but the road to hell, as they say, is paved with good intentions. Carter's presidency was marked by a series of challenges that would test even the most seasoned politician. The economy sputtered, plagued by inflation and an energy crisis. International conflicts flared, demanding attention and decisive action. And then there was Iran. Oh, Iran. But we'll get to that dumpster fire later. It's important to remember that Carter wasn't some career politician groomed from birth for the Oval Office. No, this was a man who once ran a peanut farm, a man who, by all accounts, was genuinely decent. Perhaps that was part of the problem. The world of international diplomacy is a murky swamp, filled with creatures that would sooner eat you for breakfast than shake your hand. And Jimmy Carter, with his talk of human rights and his belief in the inherent goodness of mankind, well, he just wasn't cut out for that kind of world. He was a Boy Scout in a den of wolves. And the wolves, they smelled weakness. Now, I'm not saying Carter was a terrible president. He had his successes, moments of genuine triumph. But his presidency was also marked by a series of missteps, of decisions that left many questioning his judgment, his ability to lead, decisions that ultimately cast a long shadow over his legacy. So, let's dive into the swamp, shall we? Let's take a closer look at the man, the myth, the peanut farmer himself, Jimmy Carter. Foreign policy under Jimmy Carter was, to put it mildly, eventful. It was a whirlwind of diplomatic overtures, some successful, others not so much. Let's start with the supposed triumphs, shall we? In 1979, Carter achieved what many thought impossible, a peace treaty between Israel and Egypt. The Camp David Accords, as they were known, were a landmark achievement, a rare glimmer of hope in a region plagued by conflict. Carter, ever the optimist, hailed it as a victory for peace, and who knows, maybe it was. But peace in the Middle East is a fickle beast, prone to vanishing at the first sign of trouble. Then there was China. In 1979, Carter formally recognized the People's Republic of China, a move that had significant geopolitical implications. This shift in diplomatic recognition from Taiwan to China had long-term consequences, including empowering adversarial regimes and altering global power dynamics. Nixon may have opened the door, but Carter ushered China onto the world stage. Was it the right move? Time will tell. But one thing's for sure, it ruffled more than a few feathers in the halls of power. And then there was the Panama Canal. A symbol of American power and ingenuity, or a relic of colonial arrogance? Depends on who you ask. Carter, ever the idealist, decided to right a historical wrong, signing a treaty in 1977 that would eventually return control of the canal to Panama. The American right was apoplectic. "We built it," they cried. "It's ours." But Carter, bless his heart, he stuck to his guns. He believed it was the right thing to do. These were just a few of the foreign policy challenges that Carter faced during his presidency. Some he navigated with relative success. Others not so much. But one thing's for sure, he left his mark on the world stage. Whether that mark is a badge of honor or a scarlet letter, well, that's for history to decide. Ah, Iran, we meet again. You see, no discussion about Jimmy Carter's presidency would be complete without mentioning the elephant in the room, the albatross around his neck, the giant sucking sound that was the Iran hostage crisis. It began in November 1979 when a group of Iranian students stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, taking 52 American diplomats and citizens hostage. Their demand? The return of the Shah of Iran, who was receiving medical treatment in the United States. The world watched in horror as the crisis unfolded. And what was Carter's response? Well, initially it was a lot of hand-wringing and sternly worded letters. He tried diplomacy, of course. He always tried diplomacy first. But the Ayatollah Khomeini, the supreme leader of Iran, wasn't interested in diplomacy. He smelled weakness. He saw an opportunity to humiliate the United States, and he seized it with both hands. Months dragged on. The hostages remained captive. Carter's approval ratings plummeted. He authorized a disastrous rescue attempt that ended in failure and further cemented his image as a weak and indecisive leader. The hostages were finally released on January 20, 1981, the day Ronald Reagan was inaugurated as president. Coincidence? I think not. The Iran hostage crisis cast a long shadow over Carter's presidency. It effectively ended his hopes of re-election. It tarnished his reputation on the world stage, and it left a bitter taste in the mouths of many Americans who felt that their government had failed to protect its own citizens. So what do you do when your presidency ends in disappointment, when you're remembered more for your failures than your successes? If you're Jimmy Carter, you roll up your sleeves and get to work. You see, Carter's story didn't end when he left the White House. In fact, it was just the beginning. In 1982, he founded the Carter Center, a non-profit organization dedicated to promoting peace, democracy, and human rights around the world. And promote peace he did. Carter traveled the globe mediating conflicts, monitoring elections, and speaking out against human rights abuses. He helped broker a ceasefire in Sudan. He worked to eradicate guinea worm disease in Africa. He even went to North Korea, not once but twice, to try and negotiate the release of American prisoners. Carter's post-presidency work earned him international acclaim. In 2002, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, not for anything he did for the United States while in office, but for his tireless efforts to promote his idealistic peace and understanding in the years that followed. It was a remarkable act of redemption for a man who had once been so publicly humiliated. Jimmy Carter's legacy is complex and often contradictory. He was a president who faced extraordinary challenges and made his fair share of mistakes. But he was also a man of deep convictions, a man who believed in the power of diplomacy, of human rights, of peace. In the meantime, he liked to make peace with centralized powers, and in the end it was those convictions that defined his legacy, not the political defeats that had once seemed so insurmountable. He may not have been the worst president, but he appeared, without a doubt, one of the most decent. He wasn't even the patriot he tried to appear to be.